And welcome back to Face the Nation. For more in-depth analysis of what is happening out there in the country, we're going to turn to our second panel. These are pollsters and political experts. Leslie Sanchez is a Republican strategist. She runs the Impacto Group. Stu Rothenberg is one of the most respected political analysts in the land. He puts out the Rothenberg Political Report. Anthony Salvanto is the CBS News political director. He's the director of elections. Anna Greenberg is a senior vice president of the Democratic polling firm Greenberg, Quinlan, and Rosner. And last but not least, our old friend Larry Sabato, the political guru of the University of Virginia Center for Politics. Stuart, let me talk to you. You and I talked last week, and you said, don't look at me. I have no idea who's going to win. And this is what you do for a living. But right now, how do you think this thing is breaking down this last weekend?
Well, I think a popular vote looks even or close to even, Bob. And I think anybody would be crazy to confidently predict how that's going to go. I still think the Electoral College is easier for the president to get to 270. It's not impossible for Governor Romney, but all the pieces have to fit together for him. There are a number of must-win states, and so it's just more difficult.
Well, talk a little bit about that. Why?
Well, when you look at the differences between the national polling and the state polling, it's remarkable. Now, Republicans have some problems with the state numbers. They say that most of the state polls are too Democratic. The samples are too Democratic. And in their hearts, I truly believe that the Romney folks and most Republican strategists believe that they have at least an even money chance on this. But when you look at the dispassionate polls, the independent polls, the media polls, they seem to mirror the Democratic numbers a bit more. So it's easier for the president. The president has a slight lead, apparently, possibly, in Ohio. And then you look at the other states. They're either even or a slight advantage to the president. Certainly the big states, Wisconsin and Ohio, maybe even Virginia. So it's harder for Governor Romney, but it's close enough that I think many of us are going to wait to see how the vote counting goes.
Anthony, you do all this work for CBS News. You're in charge of our poll and all of that. How do you see this thing breaking down? What do you think the closest of the battleground states are right now?
Certainly, Virginia is neck and neck. That's a toss-up. I think Colorado is razor close. I think Wisconsin is really close as well. And you know, we talk a lot about Ohio, and it's obviously critical. But let's not forget that somebody's got to take, you know, at least two or three. I think of those also to get over the top. You know, Stuart said something interesting too that I want to pick up on about these polls, because all of this is about those state polls. So much of the argument this year has been about the composition of the polls, which means the composition of the electorate. Well, there are too many older folks, too many young, too many Democrats, too many Republicans. What I think that tells you is that all of this comes down to turnout, because all the pollsters are trying to get a handle on, everybody's trying to get a handle on who's actually going to show up. Is this going to look demographically more like 2008 or more demographically like 2004? That's what's going to decide this, because frankly, there's very few, if any, undecided voters left.
Larry, you're kind of the world's foremost expert on Virginia politics. What do you think about that state right now?
There are three total toss-ups at my shop: Virginia, Colorado, New Hampshire. We've called all the other states, and we think the president's likely to win with 277 to 303 electoral votes. But Virginia is very, very close, and I think it's a lot closer than either side expected. And just to address what Stu and Anthony were saying, I've got a lot of good contacts there. Obviously, I've lived there all my life, and they really do believe what they're saying. And the Republicans swear to me, and they've shared their numbers, Romney is up a point or two in their tracking polls. The Democrats have done the same thing. President Obama is up a point or two in their polls. Now, I don't think Virginia is representative of the country. I do think the president has an edge in Ohio. I expect him to win Ohio. I expect him to win Wisconsin. I think he's going to win Iowa. And frankly, given the Democratic base in the other states, that's all she wrote.
You know, let me go to you, Leslie, because I want to talk a little bit about Pennsylvania, because a lot of us were putting that pretty much in the Democratic column a good ways back in this campaign. And now in the last week or so, you've seen the Romney folks putting some money in there and saying they really think they have a chance. I'm not convinced whether they think they have a chance or whether they want us to think they have a chance, which, you know, all of these things in politics, you always have to put it in the context. What is the situation there? Why are they putting this money in there?
I would say that the Victory team and the Romney team feel very confident that they understand a couple of things that we've talked about here. Yes, we're talking about Pennsylvania, to your question, but looking at Ohio and Virginia, I think they're much more competitive. They're more competitive because you're looking at the fact that Governor Romney has closed that gap post-convention. You're seeing a lot more independents move, and they have been since 2009, but move over to the Republican alternative. And this, again, comes down to being a referendum on the president. As much as everybody wants to break it down and look at polls and statistics and small percentages, individuals are deciding, these swing voters, or do they want 4 more years? And I think consistently they're showing that there's better alternatives.
Well, do you really think that you have a chance in Pennsylvania?
I think Pennsylvania is competitive. They're putting more. If you look at money in terms of money and time, the most valuable resources, the Republicans are putting significant dollars there. They're winding that up together with a lot. And look at where they're aiming. Not only working class white, but also suburban women, college-educated women. And the resources are there. The ground game's there. They're going to tell you there are 150,000 volunteers. They're doing significant more in terms of direct voter contact. All of that makes a difference on election day.
I think, Anna, I think, didn't David Axelrod say he'd shave his mustache if they lost Pennsylvania?
He did, and a bunch of other ones too, which including Wisconsin and Michigan and potentially Ohio as well.
What do you think about it?
I don't think that they're going to win Pennsylvania. I think they have money to burn. There's so much outside money that the Romney campaign is flush, and I think that they're making Obama spend money there. But in particular, looking at the suburban voters in the Philly suburbs and college women, that's an area where all of the issues around the war on women are actually really problematic for Romney and for the Republicans. And so not only do I think, you know, Pennsylvania is pretty reliably blue, I also think that they've got extra problems, if you will, in the suburban areas because they are so out of step on social issues with those voters.
I'm really glad, if you don't mind, that you mentioned that, because I think the Democrats have completely overplayed their reach to women. Not only did they patronize women by looking specifically at social issues, talking only about abortion and contraception, when you interview these women, they are talking about a much broader sense of economic issues. Will I have the financial security to take care of my aging parents? Will my children be able to go to college like we planned? It's not this kind of redefined sense of looking back toward what women's issues are, but looking forward because we are the breadwinners so much of the family.
But with all due respect, there's actually no data that supports that point. In other words, if you do polling and you test these issues, which I've done in many of the races I work in, and in many of the races I work in, we're doing stuff on TV and the mail, independent women are very offended by everything from Aiken to Murdoch to the Republican platform, and it is not a narrow set of issues. It speaks directly to women's economic standing. And I think you're going to find at the end of this election, with all the post-election research, that these issues didn't define the election, but for some voters, especially independent women who are sort of the holy grail in this election, they were very important.
Bob, let me get back to Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Minnesota and away from women. Not that I want to get away from women, but what we saw in 2004 here, all 3 of these states were really close. John Kerry won them narrowly between 2 and 4 percentage points. They're competitive races, competitive states. If we have a competitive race, and we are, it's not surprising that these are real contests. The problem for the Republicans is getting over that hump. Yes, they can get within 2 or 3 points in these states, but winning them, that's awfully hard. And are you really going to tell me, Leslie, maybe you will, that Mitt Romney is going to win Pennsylvania, but he's going to have a hard time winning Virginia and Colorado and Ohio? No.
I'm not to the point on Pennsylvania. I think it's a much more difficult task. There's no doubt. The area, you know, we could seed that. Let's just say the scenario of seeding that, New Hampshire, give Iowa, give Wisconsin, give Minnesota. Let's just move that off the table.